What's up, everybody? It is part 2 of the Friday Double Dip here on Keyboard Kimura. Spencer Kyte, your friendly neighborhood Spencer man, back with the betting show for UFC Charlotte. Before we get into any of this week's bets, what we do every week here on this program, if it is your first time tuning in or if you are a regular viewer of this show, we do a couple of things before we get into the week ahead. First and foremost of those is that I want to let you know that the wagers I make here is strictly monopoly money. These are numbers on a spreadsheet for me. I am not running out and making these actual wagers. I want this kind of stuff just to be additive to your enjoyment of the UFC card this weekend, of any weekend. If you are wagering, if gambling, and if betting on these fights is something you enjoy doing, please do so responsibly. Do not put in anything you can't afford to lose. Do not look at this as holding any of us that offer ideas, suggestions, selections accountable for your losses, responsible for your losses. We are all grown men and women and individuals that can make these decisions freely and of ourselves. And if you or anyone you know is struggling with any of this, is struggling with problem gambling, please check out the show notes. Check out the podcast notes. If you're just listening to the podcast version of this, there are help resources for the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Ireland included in the notes. Those are the 4 main markets that this show currently goes out to. And so that's why those ones are there. But anywhere, please just reach out if you or anyone you care about is struggling, is having issues, if there are any concerns. Gambling addiction is a real thing. It can cause a lot of problems. I have grown up in and around betting industries of various forms. I've seen it firsthand. I know how tricky and dangerous it can be. So please, believe me, if you are having issues, reach out. Resources there in the notes. Just have this be fun. Just have this be extra. I do it just to see if I can make some of these things make sense, if I can figure out some of these lines and some of these plays and have some good thoughts. But it's just for fun for me. It is just, as I said, numbers on a spreadsheet. It's just monopoly money. I would be divorced several times over if I was making all of these wagers. And I make that joke and I smile when I say it, because last week, the return to Keyboard Kimura, the debut of the betting show here on Keyboard Kimura, UFC 288, we had $1,100 worth of wagers go out. And we only brought in $312.50. So we lost $787.50 last week. And let me tell you, up until the last 2 fights, we were in a position where we may not be cashing any tickets. And it was real dicey. And it was real scary. Jessica Andrade and Drew Dober, those 2 fights, absolutely clobbered me from a wagering standpoint. This is one of the things I talk about all the time when I do the comparison between fight picks and betting. I went 8-4 with my picks last week and yet somehow managed to lose close to $800. That's just how different these things can go. That's how many variables are in here. Those 2 fights that I mentioned, Andrade and Drew Dober, so Yan Xiaonan and Matt Frevola, that's $700 of the $787.50 that was ultimately lost in those 2 fights. So it can go south in a hurry. That stack on Andrade didn't work out. Drew Dober getting through the steamroller didn't work out. We are down $787.50 for the year, which means there is $9,212.50 in the bank. And right now, hopefully, knock on wood, is when we start clawing our way back. Brings us to UFC on ABC 4, Rozenstruik versus Almeida. As always, not going to have a bet on every fight on the card. Don't have nearly as many wagers this time around. Don't have as much going out the window and out the door and out the pocket this time around, but we do have some wagers. And so here we go. It starts in the main event. $100 on Jailton Almeida to finish in round 1 at -110, which returns $190.91. And then a little second round hedge, a half price hedge, $50 on Almeida to finish in round 2 at +350, which returns $450. My thinking here, I believe that he gets a first round finish. I think it's the most likely path to victory. I think he takes Jairzinho Rozenstruik to the ground relatively quickly with relative ease and then works from top position to get a finish, because unlike the last fight with Shamil Abdurakhimov, who has slightly better takedown defense, a little bit more grappling, a little bit more of a grappling acumen, Rozenstruik doesn't. And I think Almeida goes out and gets a single or gets a blast double or even just picks an ankle, dumps him onto his backside, and goes to work. On the off chance that it takes a little longer for him to get there, I want to have that second round wager in there, because I think if Rozenstruik is forced to defend on the ground and defend takedowns for the duration of the first round, he's going to be gassed in the second, and Meladinho will get him out of there in the second round. So total on the main event, total on these two wagers, it's $150 out. So if he wins in the first, it's $190, 91 back. We make a $40 profit. That's great. If he wins in the second, it's $450 back. We make a $300 profit. Obviously, that's considerably better, but I'm leaning towards, and I'm expecting it to be that first one. So we still make a profit. That's the way I try to do these if I'm going to double up or I'm going to stack some different stuff, as I'll explain a little more here in the co-main event. Anthony Smith, Johnny Walker. My pick on the Punch Drunk predictions, if you have checked that out, if you have listened to that, is Anthony Smith. And I'm making some wagers on Lionheart as well, because I like this line. I like the opportunity this fight presents. So it is $200 on the Anthony Smith money line, which is minus 110, which returns $381.82. It's $100 on Anthony Smith to finish, which is at plus 145, so a return of $245. And it's $50 on Lionheart to finish in round one, which is plus 280, so $190 return. So all told for this fight, we've got $350 out. If all that happens is that Anthony Smith wins a 3-round decision, we cash for $381.82. We make $31 profit. It's not a ton, but profit is profit. We're always looking to put profits in the bank. That being said, if he wins and gets a finish, we cash for a total of $626.82, $276.82 profit. Certainly a much nicer number. And if he gets that finish in the first round, we're cashing for $816.82 for a $466.82 profit, which is lovely. Just a lovely number, a very robust number that will get us close to even, regardless of what else happens before or after this fight. I think Anthony Smith is just the more, as I talked about on the Punch Drunk predictions, I think he's just the more complete fighter. I think there will be opportunities for him to go out and get a finish and hunt down a finish in this fight against Johnny Walker, who is a classic killer be killed fighter. Only been the distance a couple of times. That has been in defeat. That has been when Nikita Krylov was happy to just kind of grind him out. Anthony Smith ain't that dude. If he gets a chance to put you away, he will put you away. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a triangle. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some kind of choke. I also wouldn't be surprised if he just put an elbow in Johnny Walker's temple and put him to sleep. But we're going with Lionheart, 350 out. See what we bring back. No bets on the Daniel Rodriguez Ian Gary fight. I think it is a close competitive fight. I thought about the Daniel Rodriguez underdog play because I do like what D-Rod brings to the table, but I think Ian Machado Gary has too much to bring to that fight. He is just more well-rounded. He is more dynamic. I think he gets the win, so we stayed away from that. But we stick in the light heavyweight division. Carlos Ulberg and Ihor Potieria, that fight. I've put $100 on Carlos Ulberg to finish in round one, which returns at plus 155, which returns $255. My thinking here is that Ulberg, one, first and foremost, has finished in the first round in each of his last two fights. He is a dynamic, powerful, explosive dude. Secondly, Ihor Potieria is the kind of guy that is going to give Carlos Ulberg opportunities to finish. We saw in his debut fight against Nick Negumereanu that he is willing to engage. I think Ulberg is significantly better than Negumereanu, who got Potieria out of there in the second round. I think we are in the midst of seeing the Carlos Ulberg evolution, improvement, growth, development that is going to get him eventually into the top 15 and make him a very exciting guy in this division. I think he gets a finish on Saturday. I think it's in the first round. I hope it's in the first round. $100 plus 155. Turn it into 255. See if we can't make $155 as a profit. Final fight of the main card, Alex Morono and Tim Means. I put $50 on Alex Morono here to finish at plus 175, which returns $137.50. And my logic here is simply that Alex Morono has been in very good form over his last 5 fights. Lost to Santiago Ponzinibbio notwithstanding. He looked great in the first 2 rounds of that fight and just got a little lax. Just let it get away from him a little bit. It happens. It's not great. Nobody wants it. Nobody likes it. But it doesn't take away what happened in the first round of that fight, or the first 2 rounds, of that fight, where Morono looked good. Additionally, Tim Means is getting a little long in the tooth. The miles are starting to show. All of the wear and tear is starting to add up, accumulate, and present itself. And so while I initially looked at Morono from the decision side of things, which is at plus 160, using Bet365, which is the book I look at for all of my odds up here in Canada, up here in British Columbia, the finish side is a little bit greater. Now, Alex Morono hasn't been a finisher in the UFC. It's not a thing that he's done since getting to the UFC. But I think this is the opportunity. Doesn't matter if it's in the first, second, or third. We go out, he gets a finish. 50 turns into 137.50, an $87 profit. Take that any day. Last straight wager of this card is Matt Brown, $50 on the money line at plus 187, returns $143.50. I don't like picking against my guy, Court McGee, but I look at this number, I look at these odds, and Matt Brown being nearly a 2-to-1 dog just feels crazy to me. This, to me, is a coin flip pick'em fight. Both are coming off losses. Court McGee is coming off a first-round knockout loss to Jeremiah Wells. Matt Brown is coming off a very narrow split decision loss to Bam Bam Barberena in a fight of the night back in March, where I thought he looked better than Court McGee has looked in any of his last 3 fights. And so if you're going to give me underdog value on a guy that I think can go out and get this victory just straight up, like if this was a pick'em, I would still be advocating for Matt Brown here. I'm going to take that chance. I'm going to throw $50 on that plus 187 and see if we can get 143.50 back. As always, we round out the show with the parlays, with the Punch Drunk Prediction parlays. So they are a $10 main card parlay, a $10 preliminary card parlay, and then a $10 full card parlay. The reason I have been doing this for several events, several years now, is because if I'm going to put picks out, if I'm going to put my predictions out, I don't ever want to have a night where I run the table on the prelims, I run the table on the main card, or I run the table entirely and I haven't gotten any money in on it. Again, this is fictional money for me. This is pretend money, monopoly money, numbers on a spreadsheet. But it's still nice to keep track of and see that number be a positive and not a negative. You still want to have success. And so on the main card, we have Jailton Almeida, Anthony Smith, Ian Machado Gary, Carlos Ulberg, Alex Morono. Combined odds for those 5 favorites is plus 431. So $10 gets you 53.13. I'll take it. Make $40 on picking all favorites. We go chalk on the main card and make $40. Sounds good to me. Again, profit is profit. Get us back towards even, if not better, as soon as possible. That's the aim every single week. The aim every week is to make profit. But right now, as we're down, the aim is to get back to close to even. Don't want to overshoot here. Let's get back to close to even, and then we'll start talking about everything else. On the prelims, the $10 prelim parlay. Matt Brown, Carl Williams, Cody Stamen, Jiyeon Kim, Gabriel Green, and Jessica Rose Clark. Combined odds for those 6 athletes is $2,672. So a $10 wager returns $277.33. And then the full card. we add all of those picks up. All 11 of those fights. If we run the table, so we go Almeida, Smith, Gary, Ulberg, Morono, Brown, Williams, Stamen, Kim, Green, Clark. Combined odds, 14,624. $10 parlay returns $1,471.95. It would be amazing. It would be fantastic. To run it down real quick before we get out of here, before we let you get on with your Friday, and into your weekend. $100 on Jailton Almeida to finish in round 1 at -110. $50 on Jailton Almeida to finish in round 2 at +350 as the little bit of the hedge. The Anthony Smith co-main event stack, $200 on the money line, $100 to finish overall, $50 to finish in round 1. Chance for big profit if we get a first round finish out of Lionheart. $100 on Carlos Ulberg to get a finish against Ihor Potieria. $50 for Alex Morono to finish Tim Means, and $50 for Matt Brown to get his hand raised. And I'm missing the end parentheses there, and it drives me crazy, over Court McGee, in the final prelim. And then the $10 main card parlay, we get odds of +431. The prelims, +2,672. And the full card, +14,624. As always, if that one comes in, we're flying high. We're loving life. Things are good. We're very excited. That's the kind of thing we're always looking for. Before we go, Substack, the QR code, give it a scan, head over to Keyboard Kimura, sign up, subscribe for free, for $5 a month, for $50 for the year, whatever you decide to do. I am grateful. I am thankful. I appreciate every single one of you. It helps me continue to do this day after day. Paid subscriptions help me improve the quality of these shows, improve my studio, be able to commit more time to this kind of stuff. But the free subs, I love you all. Appreciate you all. One Bone, onebonebrand.com, One Bone Brand on IG and Twitter. Go check out the boys from Montreal. Adam, Sam, the whole crew putting out great gear. Summer drop happened a couple of weeks ago at the start of the month. It's a bunch of good stuff. It's a bunch of new colors. The back catalog stuff, they've been in business for 5 years now. The back catalog stuff that is still there is all great. I say it every day. I wear it every day. I'm for real about this. Go support them. Go check them out. If you do, ESK20 at checkout for 20% off. Lets you know where you got the tip, where you got the heads up. I appreciate you guys doing it. Follow me on Twitter at Spencer Kyte. You see it in the lower third there. Love you. Appreciate you. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Hope you enjoy the fights. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on Saturday.